This is Senator Ed Brooke of Massachusetts. The film you are about to see deals with one of the few remaining major diseases that has not been the object of a national effort aimed at its eradication. It's called sickle cell anemia. The disease is carried by more than 2 million persons, or 10% of our nation's black population. It strikes 1 in every 500 black children, bringing with it agonizing pain and a greatly shortened life expectancy. Paradox of neglect traces the history of sickle cell anemia from its discovery in 1910 through the development of complex and revolutionary theories to explain its cause to the discovery of the most promising treatment to date. I urge all of you to watch closely what you are about to see. I also urge anyone who might unknowingly be afflicted with this disease to take advantage of the screening centers that are available throughout the country. The simple detection procedure may prevent delayed suffering and save lives. I am hopeful that we can now begin a concerted effort to relieve the suffering of those stricken by sickle cell anemia. Research into this previously incurable illness has now reached a new level of sophistication, but much more needs to be done. Recently, I joined in introducing a bill in the Senate that would greatly expand the funds available both for research and treatment of this disease. You can do your part by becoming informed. I hope you will benefit from this enlightening documentary.
The pain is so sharp, it's different from any other pain I guess any other person ever experienced, because it's just like a knife just going through your body. It's just tearing through your flesh and all through your bones. It just stays there and deepens and it hardens, and if it's not going to ever go away. And
I came home on emergency leave. He had blood clot on the brain, and which left him paralyzed. And I came home and stayed home till he was out of the hospital, and we put the brace on him and got him to walking again. But from 1964 up until this day, he has been continuously in and out of the hospital.
They call it a killer disease. The incidence in this country alone is greater than muscular dystrophy, leukemia, multiple sclerosis, or hemophilia. This disease has been labeled the single most neglected health problem in the United States today. It can be as deadly as cancer. 99% of its victims are black. Half of them, statistically, will never live to vote. Now, research on the disease may have created a medical milestone, a new era. Yet most people have never even heard of sickle cell anemia, the most commonly inherited disease in this country, and the most dreaded disease among 30 million black Americans. Until now, lack of knowledge has prevented its complete story from being told. It's estimated that as many as 600,000 black Americans are afflicted with the painful crippler known as sickle cell anemia. Most of the better-known major diseases of the day afflict fewer people. Of course, all diseases, regardless of any system of ranking, must have research, foundations, treatment programs, public awareness. But it seems incomprehensible in this day of such advanced communication, when we can talk to the moon, that a disease of such frightening characteristics and predominance as sickle cell anemia can exist among us virtually unnoticed. The disease is not contagious. It's inherited in the genes from the parents. It can usually be detected in anyone 6 months or older. Sickle cell anemia is primarily a children's disease because most of its victims never reach old age. Dr. Lemuel Diggs at the University of Tennessee in Memphis has been battling sickle cell disease and treating its patients probably longer than anyone else today, over 40 years.
This is a disease that causes strokes in children, and this is a disease that causes paralysis similar to polio does. On every surgical service, these patients are present. They may have leg ulcers, and the plastic surgeon is operating on them. They may have a spleen that's infarcted and they're removing it. They may have gallstones. They do have gallstones very commonly. They have many surgical conditions. Our orthopedic surgeon takes out their hips because of their deformity. They have pneumonia, they have infectious disease and high fever, and oftentimes that is one of the principal causes of death. They may have pains anywhere in the body.
Part of the reasons for the past obscurity of sickle cell anemia can be linked to the variety of illnesses it imitates. As head of pediatrics at Sydenham and Knickerbocker Hospitals in Harlem, Dr. Doris Weathers encounters the disease every day.
I like to call it the greatest mimicker among the diseases. There was a time when they said, well, tuberculosis and syphilis were the diseases that could be mistaken for so many other things. But I think sickle cell anemia really ranks up there as a disease that can seem like so many others.
Sickle cell disease attacks that most critical part of the body, blood. Red blood cells, organisms that carry oxygen and food to body tissues, periodically harden and twist from their normal donut-like appearance into crescent or sickle shapes. This sickled shape can create a log jam to block traffic in small vessels of the bloodstream. Dr. Jean Lusher of Children's Hospital in Detroit, also a pediatrician, is a member of a distinguished sickle cell research team.
The abnormally shaped sickle cells, which are very rigid, do not move through blood vessels normally. A sort of logjam effect can occur anywhere in a vessel and cut off the blood supply to that organ or part. Depending on where this occurs, various symptoms may result.
So that patients can appear with symptoms that seem exactly like a rheumatic fever or like rheumatoid arthritis or like heart failure or like kidney problems or like skin diseases or even like neurological diseases.
Lovett Moorer, 18-year-old young man with sickle cell anemia, has had several episodes of central nervous system involvement where the blood supply has been cut off to part of his brain.
Which the first stroke he had wasn't too bad. He only just sitting in a normal chair and he got where he couldn't move or talk. And he had a stroke and he couldn't feed himself. And from that later on he had another stroke and he was frequently having transfusions. So now he's at the point where he has to have transfusion every 3 weeks. He had been hospitalized at least 26 times. And he also have had 140 transfusions.
In an attempt to prevent Lovett from becoming more disabled, we have transfused him at periodic intervals in an attempt to provide him with enough normal red blood cells so that he will not have further sludging and logjam effect and blocking off of blood vessels to his brain again. Such strokes tend to be repetitive, and an individual with sickle cell anemia who has had one or more such strokes is prone to have recurrent episodes of this sort, which may leave them severely disabled. Mr. and Mrs. Williams have 6 children, 2 of whom have sickle cell anemia. Little Annie Williams has had many admissions to Children's Hospital for pain crises and infections. Her older sister, Sylvia, has more serious problems, and that Sylvia has had several episodes of neurologic involvement, or what would commonly be referred to as strokes. Sylvia has been left with some permanent disability. She's unable to walk, she's unable to feed herself, and has great difficulty in speaking.
In maternity cases, sickle cell disease is a constant threat to the lives of both the mother and the infant. Obstetricians such as Dr. T.N. Evans, who is also Dean of Medicine at Wayne State University in Detroit, know this danger well.
Now, even though most of the patients who have this illness, most of the mothers survive when this is complicated by pregnancy, but still over 50% of the babies do not. They either die before or after birth. In any large clinic population, which is predominantly black, sickle cell disease is one of the leading causes of maternal death and certainly one of the leading causes of fetal or newborn death.
But why does this disease afflict almost exclusively the black man? Although still inconclusive, there is strong evidence indicating sickle cell condition may be an adaptation the body created against malaria.
It so happens that in in Africa, where malaria was the killing disease, that the sickle cell trait protected these people, not of catching malaria, but of dying of malaria. Because these malaria parasites get into the red cell and make these cells sickle. And when they sickle, they are more likely to be destroyed, selectively destroyed.
Even today, sickle cell disease is 5 times more predominant in Africa than in the United States. Cases have also been reported in a small number of non-blacks, mainly from Mediterranean regions where malaria was once prevalent. But in the North American climate, this biological alteration creates only pain and suffering, passed on from parent to offspring.
More and more, especially from the point of view of chronic disease, illness over a long period of time, genetic diseases are becoming important. That is to say, diseases that are inherited or with which people are born and which run in families. Now, among genetic disease, sickle cell disease is the most important genetic disease in this country. It has the highest incidence.
On February the 18th, 1971, in his health message to a joint session of Congress, President Nixon called for accelerated research in 2 critical areas of disease. One was cancer, the other, sickle cell anemia, of which he said in part, and I quote, "It's a sad and shameful fact that the causes of this disease have been largely neglected throughout our history. We cannot rewrite this record of neglect, but we can reverse it." Due to a lack of public attention to the disease, statistics are incomplete and they vary. Some say 2% of the black population in this country, or approximately 600,000, are victimized by sickle cell anemia. Some feel it's more. Others say it's closer to 0.5%. In several areas of Africa, the figure is as high as 15%. Perhaps the only figure in the United States that appears to meet with basic agreement is a birth rate of 1 victim for every 400 deliveries. Oftentimes, this can mean that there are several victims in one family.
I have a daughter. She also has sickle cell. Here lately, she was in the hospital for 3 months. Then she came out home for a week. She went back in for another 2 weeks. She came home for another week. Back in the hospital again for a week and a half. Each time she was having transfusions, she have had 120 transfusions.
How many times has she been hospitalized?
She was in Children's Hospital 52 times. She was in North Detroit General Hospital 3 times. She was in Detroit General Hospital once. And she had been in Burton Mercy 3 times.
How old is she?
She's 21 now.
Because of the fact that it has occurred mostly among blacks, it has tended to be overlooked.
Motion picture and television dramatic actor Ossie Davis is actively involved in a campaign to bridge the sickle cell information gap and stir the general public to attention.
Troubles in this country. It is only of late that we've begun to look into sickle cell anemia. Luckily now, a lot of attention is being paid to it. Foundations are being established. The government is beginning to move. People, the American public is beginning to be aware that sickle cell anemia is a major health hazard and that it must be treated as such, and that we need...
With recent news that relief for sickle cell anemia may be in sight, it now appears that scientific research has not neglected this disease. In fact, a strange paradox has been created. This disease that so many have never heard of is now considered by many the best scientifically understood of all diseases. Understanding that has brought scientists almost close enough to touch the origin of man and perhaps the dawn of a new era in medical research. Enter now the new era of molecular medicine.
These have been extraordinary years for biology, for molecular biology, for the people who are interested in the detailed molecular structure of human beings. I've been involved in this all my life.
One of the great scientific minds of this generation, Dr. Linus Pauling, Stanford University. One of the few scientists in the world to ever win the Nobel Prize on 2 different occasions. Pauling's distinction was in 2 quite different fields, chemistry and peace. In the 1940s, his research, later to bring him the first Nobel Award, involved sickle cell anemia. He was the first to propose a new and revolutionary concept of its origin.
In 1945, the idea occurred to me that a very serious disease, sickle cell anemia, is really a disease of the hemoglobin molecule. This was a new idea, the idea of molecular disease. And the evidence seemed to me to be pretty good. So I asked...
To test this idea, he assigned 3 of his students, Doctors Itano, Singer, and Wells, to the project. During the period from 1910, when sickled cells were first observed, up until Pauling's time, research had only made limited advances, mostly because few cases were reported. One basic discovery was that the sickling, or the distortion of the cell, is caused by a physical change in the hemoglobin of the blood cell. Hemoglobin is the portion of the cell that carries oxygen throughout the body. Pauling's theory essentially went one step further. The molecules of which the hemoglobin is composed have been manufactured in a different shape, and the human body, without help from an outside source such as a chemical, bacteria, or a virus, was producing, in assembly line fashion, its own disease. Pauling's young assistants in proving the theory utilized a method called electrophoresis, similar to the one shown here.
And the result was that we were able to describe sickle cell hemoglobin as a molecular disease. The first time that any disease had been characterized as a disease of molecules which are different in structure, these hemoglobin molecules for the patients, from those in other human beings. There was another young man working in my laboratory, Dr. Bakio Murayama, for a couple of years on problems connected with hemoglobin. He developed this subject further.
Dr. Pauling and his co-workers in 1948, by means of a method called electrophoresis, they discovered the sickle cell hemoglobin. And this really actually triggered the information explosion in all areas of hemoglobin chemistry, in the area of molecular medicine in general.
Murayama, one of the government's top scientists at the National Institute of Health at Bethesda, Maryland, in general agreed with Pauling's theory that these molecules of hemoglobin, because of their different structure, were somehow clumping together, stretching the red cell out of shape. But how? For 6 years, Murayama spent evenings in his basement at home, and with computed data supplied from Cambridge University in England, he constructed by hand, atom by atom, this masterpiece. One molecule of human hemoglobin, magnified 127 million times. To put this in perspective, on the head of a pin can be placed 3 million red blood cells. Each blood cell contains 300 million of these hemoglobin molecules. Each molecule contains 10,000 atoms.
Technically, this is a special sort of a truncated tetrahedron. Until the model was built, of course, no one knew exactly the shape of the human hemoglobin molecule. And from the big model, the geometry, or the shape, the surface contour of the molecule was deduced, and this is a miniature version of the big one. And we say...
Basically, the molecule contains four parts, a top and a bottom called alpha and beta. With each of these composed of two parts, alpha 1 and 2, beta 1 and 2. But still the question, how does the molecule affect the sickled cells in patients? Then a discovery made several years earlier, initially thought to be of minor consequence, for Murayama began a sequence of events. The key was in the field of amino acids, commonly called the building blocks of life. The molecule of hemoglobin is formed by a sequence of 574 of these amino acids arranged in 4 chains. Each of the 4 parts, alpha 1 and 2, beta 1 and 2, has a chain. In sickle cell anemia, the beta 1 and 2 chains have one acid out of place, a difference caused by inherited genes.
As you can see, the normal molecule contains glutamic acid at position 6. In sickle cell hemoglobin, this is substituted by valine, a neutral amino acid.
Since the physical appearance of these acids was already known, they were soon located on the large model along the bottom edge.
Here is the basic cause of the red cell sickling when that amino acid is substituted by valine.
At these 2 points of misplaced building blocks on the beta half, a pucker develops, forming 2 projections. When a sickle cell patient's body runs low on oxygen, either through exertion, high altitudes, or infection, the 2 beta portions pull away from each other. This is just enough to align the projections with 2 indentations, or pockets, on the top edge of a nearby molecule. When these pieces slip together, a chemical bond is created, locking them in place. Under normal oxygen supply, this alignment would not take place. But once started, the action continues until a strand, or a filament, of stacked molecules has been formed.
We know from electron microscopic studies that 6 filaments twist together to form a hollow cable, and this we call technically microtubule. It simply means a very small tube. And these tubules in turn bundle together to form a large rod, and then these rods inside the sickle cell become fairly rigid and thus twist the red cell out of shape.
This can be witnessed in the round cells seen here in the center. The molecules shift to one side, the cell is deformed. It's at this point that the cells, now crystallized and stretched out of shape because of the stacked molecules, jam up in the vessels. Blood flow is halted. Tissues and organs cut off from their supply of oxygen suffer damage. The victim experiences various degrees of pain. This is a condition known as sickle cell crisis.
Usually, though, it occurs in the joints of the body, such as the hands, the legs, the arms, and at times I can't even walk. I'm crippled. You know, I feel like I'm an invalid, but after hospitalization and blood transfusion, I become all right for time being, and then the cycle starts again. So, like, it's a constant thing with my life.
Technically, to cure sickle cell anemia would entail altering the inherited genes which produce the substituted amino acid. But the answer is still hidden somewhere in here. The DNA molecule, carrier of genetic characteristics.
To cure sickle cell disease is essentially the same as the problem of belling of the cat. Who's going to do it, when, and how? So it will be a long way off, I think, before we can, in the first place, locate the gene for the hemoglobin alone. And then it'll be quite a while before we can pinpoint the position 6 of the beta chain in human hemoglobin molecule.
But armed with molecular knowledge, enabling them to watch this disease build itself, researchers from Michigan now think they have found a point where a chemical monkey wrench can be thrown into the gears of sickle cell anemia, decreasing its pain and its destruction. The distinction of bringing molecular sickle cell theories to perhaps the first comprehensive treatment of the disease was achieved by pathologist Dr. Robert Nalbandian of Grand Rapids, Michigan. His team of researchers from Wayne State University in Detroit includes Dr. Gene Lusher, Dr. Raymond Henry, Dr. James Orton, Dr. Marion Barnhart, Dr. Walter Seegers, and Dr. T.N. Evans. The approach was simply a what goes up must come down attitude. The target was a chemical bond holding the stacked molecules together. Again, one of Dr. Murayama's findings played a key factor. The bond, or chemical cement, linking the molecules was defined by Dr. Murayama as a water, or a hydrophobic bond as it's called, created when the beta projections connect with the alpha pockets.
Now let us say this represents the alpha chain hydrophobic residue, and then here comes the beta 6, the specific binding hydrophobic group of the sickle cell hemoglobin molecule. See, the residues are stabilized, the hydrogen atoms are stabilized by the water molecule which surrounds it.
These bonds can be demonstrated another way. Due to an unusual quality, the freezing and melting points of sickle cell hemoglobin are reversed because of these hydrophobic bonds. This tube of hemoglobin has been warmed to 37 degrees centigrade, body temperature. As you can see, the surface is in a gel form. When this same tube is immersed in iced water, instead of freezing, as you would expect, it turns to a liquid state. The phenomenon could be compared to placing gelatin in the refrigerator to melt it and in the oven to make it set. This demonstration can also be used to diagnose sickle cell anemia in a patient. This procedure is known as the Murayama test. Meanwhile, to break these hydrophobic bonds, Dr. Nalbandian found he needed a set of chemical blueprints.
If, in fact, these particular hydrophobic bonds that Murayama said had to occur before the event of sickling followed, then it followed very logically that one might mount a chemical attack at these particular hydrophobic bonds. And on pure molecular theory, then, we developed a list of specifications for the ideal chemical desickling agent. And after we drew this list up of 5 or 6 specifications, it took us just a short time to realize that we actually had defined urea.
Although commonly thought to be a waste product, urea, a natural substance manufactured in the liver, is one of the earliest compounds known to medicine. The first time it was used in desickling blood cells, it worked too well. The cells, besides being returned to normal, were being destroyed. After researching further, Dr. Nalbandian recalled an article that he had read back in the 1950s dealing with the use of urea in sugar solution during brain surgery.
Swelling of the brain. So I knew that somewhere there was a pharmaceutical preparation of urea which was compatible with life. And in short order, I traced it down to Dr. Manoshar Javid, professor of neurosurgery at the University of Wisconsin in Madison.
Since 1954, we have used urea in 2,200 patients. These patients have received urea before surgery, during surgery, and after surgery.
And our next series of experiments involved the use of urea in sugar solutions, and they were uniformly successful.
Additional proof came from physiologist Dr. Marion Barnhart at Wayne State University. She observed the desickling process with a scanning electron microscope capable of magnifications in excess of 100,000 times. Under lower magnification, time-lapse sequences of the reversal of an artificially induced sickle cell crisis were also captured on high-speed film.
At this time, the count of the cell population has changed from the moderately normal to 70% in the sickle shape. 1/2 minute after the addition of urea and invert sugar, there has been an immediate reversal so that about 26% of the cells are in the peculiar sickle configuration. the next sequence that you see shows the status of these cells at 25 minutes after the addition of urea and invert sugar. Only 22% of the cell population are strain-shaped enough to call them sickle cells. Now, the final sequence in this series illustrates for you what normal people's red blood cells look like. These normal cells, some of them that you're observing, have been exposed to the urea in invert sugar, and as you see, they do not look unusual in their shape or configuration.
The effect of urea is basically one of ungluing the molecules. Filtering through tissues and membranes, because it can't flow through the blocked blood vessels, the chemical goes directly to the stacked molecules inside the sickled cells. The hydrophobic bond is shattered, filaments disconnect, and stacking crumbles as molecules return to their suspended state. The blood cell changes back to its donut shape. Blood flow resumes, and pain subsides. The first hospital use of urea on a sickle cell patient came in March of 1970 in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Dr. Garth Schultz, a young internist and former associate of Dr. Nalbanyan, admitted a young man in severe crisis. After contacting Dr. Nalbanyan for consultation and procedure, the urea therapy began.
We proceeded cautiously at the beginning. We used a drug that has been used previously for treatment of intracerebral edema. There's about 10 or 12 years of experience with this drug, and it seems to be fairly safe. He received this intravenously as a slow, cautious infusion. We watched the urea concentration in his blood rise slowly, and it took us a good 12, 15 hours before the patient began to notice any real benefit. We continued with the urea infusion, and in about 36 hours he was completely free of the severe pains from his sickle cell crisis. His crises usually lasted 5 to 10 days.
But urea may have yet another benefit of even greater impact. By taking daily oral doses of the compound, future crises might be prevented, much as insulin can keep a diabetic healthy. With urea, this involves a chemical restructuring of the molecule.
On the basis of incomplete evidence, we're still working on the problem. We feel that urea attaches at the two critical points on the upper aspect of the hemoglobin molecule and at two critical points on the lower edge of the hemoglobin molecule, and changes the shape of the molecule so that it inhibits the lethal property of sickling without interfering with the critical life support property of oxygen transport. Now, this is very exquisite, precise, elegant molecular modeling by a chemical agent. To my knowledge, and to the knowledge of the members of our team, this has never been done in medicine before.
Edwin, Lisa, and Audrey Ray have all had numerous admissions to Children's Hospital for pain crises and infections. Because of the problems that the Ray children have had, we have started them on our oral urea prophylaxis program. All three of the children started on the program approximately 3.5 months ago, and none have had any serious problems since that time. Craig Neely is also on our oral urea prophylaxis program. All of these children take the urea 4 times daily. The urea comes in a powder form, is dissolved just prior to use in a beverage such as 7-Up or other carbonated beverage. The children find it quite palatable as long as it's in a carbonated beverage. They can mix it themselves, take their dose 4 times a day with very little trouble.
In the past, when I had the pains, like I said, would be quite severe and wouldn't be nothing they could do for it but give me something for pain. And even then, it never would really alleviate the pain. You know, after they give me so much drugs, I just go off to sleep, but the pain would still be there when I woke up. And it's been hard for me, you know, in school because I'd have to miss so much. So now with the urea, you know, I hope I can get adjusted to school in life.
However, standard use of the urea treatment, either to stop a crisis or avoid future episodes, will not become common until more data is gathered. Just as some people develop negative reactions to vitamins or aspirin or penicillin, some people could develop negative reactions to urea. It's not yet known what conditions might cause this.
Now, urea is a normally occurring compound in the body and is made by the liver. And our treatment simply consists of elevating the blood levels of this naturally occurring compound. Our results to date have been most encouraging, but we think that physicians should properly remain skeptical of our results until we can provide conclusive data. We are in the last and most expensive phase of our research, that of clinical randomized controlled studies. And we will need hundreds of patients, hundreds and thousands of dollars, and a few years more of work.
I think at the present time, we would have to say that although urea appears that there is some evidence that it may be effective, we as yet do not have the complete evaluation in, so that those of us who deal with patients, we are awaiting this type of evaluation.
Many different types of therapy have been suggested and have been tried with greater or less success. However, urea seems to be more promising than any other. There is a sound theoretical basis, apparently, for its use. And we have been using it here in our hospital, both in the very severe crisis in the intravenous form and in certain cases orally to alleviate a less severe crisis or to prevent crises. And my general impression is one of cautious enthusiasm, I would say. I do feel that there seems to be some value to it, but it does need careful, controlled clinical studies.
Research programs are now being set up by the government, and according to U.S. Surgeon General Jesse Steinfeld, will include special evaluation and trials of the urea treatment. While the jury is out deliberating the treatment, another danger from sickle cell disease remains, a danger that involves an additional 2.5 million people. The threat from sickle cell disease is not limited to the estimated 500,000 active sufferers. Approximately 1 in 10 black Americans carries the sickle cell trait, as it's called, usually in a dormant condition. Usually a carrier of the trait, a person who has inherited the sickle gene from only one parent, never suffers a pain crisis, but it can happen.
Although sickle cell trait is a fairly benign condition, and these patients very rarely get into trouble, on some special and selected situations they may get into trouble, because even people carrying sickle cell trait occasionally will have hematuria, that is blood in the urine. Occasionally they will get an infarct in the spleen, particularly with high altitude flying. And also sometimes after a surgical operation where anesthesia has been used, a person with sickle cell trait may suddenly have massive sickling and get into some difficulty.
There are even variations of the single dose. Probably the most hazardous is the SC strain, highly dangerous, but active only when the female patient is pregnant.
When a pregnant woman is afflicted with this unfortunate genetically transmitted complication, about 1 out of 4 women die during the course of pregnancy or as a complication following delivery, and still nearly all of the infants fail to survive. There are some notable exceptions to this. Now, it's important to remember, although all of us are terribly excited about the implications of the discovery of the possible role of urea in the management of this disease, it's important for us to realize that this is a genetically transmitted disease and that urea or no other known form of treatment is actually curative.
My pregnancy started out normal until I was about 6 months, and then I woke up one night with pain which was really unbelievable in my joints, and And after going through quite a number of blood tests, they diagnosed the SC of sickle cell anemia. In the end, I carried my baby through 7 months, and it ended up being a stillborn.
Many hospitals across the country take precautions in advance by testing all their patients for the presence of sickle cell hemoglobin. Unfortunately, this is not a standard procedure yet. What is needed is mass testing of the general population. That's a sizable logistical problem. Besides money and public awareness, what has been needed most is a high-speed, automated test capable of handling thousands of persons a day. Now, for the first time, this too may be available. Until now, the most widely used test has been a manual procedure sold by a pharmaceutical company. A sample of blood is taken from a patient's finger or ear and dissolved in a solution. If the liquid turns cloudy, the test is termed positive, indicating the presence of a sickle cell condition. This method usually takes under 5 minutes at an average cost of $1 per test. The new process, automated from equipment usually found in any of the larger hospitals across the country, is capable of handling over 1,000 tests in one day at a cost of about 2 cents per test. The procedure was refined by Dr. Nalbanyan's research group, and Bruce Nichols mechanized the operation. Its development came from the military's growing concern over sickle cell trait within the ranks, a concern no doubt prompted by the death of 4 servicemen several years ago while undergoing basic training. All of them carried the sickle cell trait.
While only rarely does an individual with sickle cell disease become inducted, the number of carriers, or those with sickle cell trait, that pass through the induction station and continue on active duty is virtually unknown. It is important to identify these individuals in order to restrict their duties and geographic area of assignment, or to separate them as the case may warrant.
Some military testing has shown as many as 7.5% of those tested carry sickle cell disease in one form or another. The automated procedure was field tested under the direction of Colonels Nicholas Conti and Frank Camp at the Army's Medical Research Lab at Fort Knox, Kentucky. Blood is taken from a subject and placed in the machine's small sample cups in this carousel. A device automatically draws up a specific amount and feeds it into the tubes. The chemical dithionite, a sickling agent, is added. An air bubble separates each sample for classification before it goes through the coils for thorough mixing. The blood is then heated to body temperature in this chamber. If sickle cell hemoglobin is present, the sample turns cloudy, just as it does in the manual test. A small light in this chamber records the amount of transparency of each sample and records it on graph paper. A cloudy or positive test allows only a small amount of light to pass through, causing the chart's needle to veer sharply to the left. This operation has already been used successfully on a large civilian population. In Grand Rapids, Dr. Nalbanyan's hometown, thousands of black students were tested in a matter of weeks. Thus far, sickle cell condition has shown up in approximately 14% of those tested. Additional tests, however, must be performed to determine whether the condition is the full disease or the trait. So by learning the presence of this condition, individuals, either in military or civilian life, can try to avoid special situations where the usually dormant sickle cell trait might pull a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde trick and send the patient into crisis. But perhaps the most important of all reasons for mass testing programs involves family planning, which can either eliminate, perpetuate, or proliferate the disease.
I myself think that the best thing to do is to eliminate the gene for sickle cell anemia, to eliminate it from the pool of human germplasm through a process of not having children, that is, having a child who is grossly defective and doomed to a life of considerable suffering and an early death is too great to allow a combination of ignorance about the seriousness of the disease, about this possibility, and free enterprise in love to take care of the matter. I think that we should know who the carriers of this gene are, and they should be strongly advised not to have children.
Family planning, of course, is a decision to be made by the individual. In this regard, more and more emphasis is being placed on a rapidly expanding field, genetic counseling. One of these counselors in the field of sickle cell disease is Dr. Robert Murray, head of the genetics department at Howard University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C.
During the usual genetic counseling session, we try to not only tell the patient about the inheritance of the sickle cell gene, but we try to have them understand the disease as well. And so we explain to them, first of all, what the disease is, where it originated, and why they have it, why black people in particular have it, and finally, what its consequences can be for them or their offspring. If two individuals who carry the sickle gene or have the sickle trait should marry, then each of their offspring will have a 1 in 4 chance, or a 25% chance, of having sickle cell disease. Now, I say each of their offspring because each child has the chance of getting the sickle gene from the mother and the sickle gene from the father. I do not say that 1/4 of their children will have the disease, because with each child, the risk is the same.
Also out of this same marriage would come 2 chances in 4 of each offspring inheriting the trait. Dr. Herman Slattis, human geneticist, Michigan State University.
Sometimes both of the parents in a marriage will be of the AS type. AS by AS. So that both of the parents have sickle cell trait. Now, one parent may give an A gene and the other an A. One may give an A and the other an S. Or both parents may give S genes. It happens that these have probabilities of 1 to 2 to 1.
So in each child produced by a marriage between 2 people with sickle cell trait, there is a 75% chance of having some form of the disease. Some experts believe that if every sickle cell patient were to follow genetic family planning guidelines, it would take at least 100 years to eliminate this disease as a major hazard to the health of black men, women, and children in this country and other countries in the world. A cure, however, must wait until science achieves the controversial ability to alter the human gene. In the interim, expansion of molecular theories leading to promising discoveries such as the urea treatment may soon bring total relief in all areas of sickle cell anemia.
Dr. Linus Pauling in 1952, 4 years before he won the Nobel Prize, predicted that when the molecular pathology of sickle cell hemoglobin was well understood, then rational methods of therapy would follow. Pauling's prediction has been fulfilled, for that is exactly what we have done.
The treatment with urea, which Dr. Nalbandyan has been using, is based upon the ideas about molecular structure that were developed by Dr. Murayama. I think that these developments indicate a direction that medicine can follow in the future, and that we can expect that there will be very great progress in the field of medicine through the development of a molecular basis, understanding of the molecular basis of disease, and the development of methods of control which involve the use of molecules that are normally present in the human body. I am thinking not only of genetic diseases.
Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Jesse Steinfeld.
Well, up until now, all of the therapy for the sickle cell crisis and the attempts at preventing the crisis have been symptomatic, just taking care of the pain and hydration and infection. The urea therapy, being based as it is upon the fundamental molecular disturbance that occurs in the disease, is the most promising we have to date for the treatment of the crisis. It may also be useful in preventing crises, but I think we've got to have a guarded optimism here. Optimism because the therapy is designed on the basis of the fundamental molecular biology of the disease, but guarded because it has not yet been proven throughout the United States and in a large number of institutions. What we must do is have a nationwide series of trials to actually demonstrate whether or not urea and invert sugar is the treatment of choice for sickle cell crisis and can be used to prevent the disease from occurring or prevent the crisis. But really, our fundamental goal is prevention of the disease itself, not only the crisis, but the occurrence of homozygous or SS disease. And this, of course, will require further fundamental biologic research, which, of course, we are going to support in ever-increasing amounts in this area.
But sickle cell disease is more than just research, theories, formulas, or a volume of statistics. Sickle cell is people. People with problems. People needing a helping hand. People with questions.
We have a certain attitude in our country, a racial attitude, which doesn't pay too much attention to things when they happen only to black people. We see it in the epidemic of drugs, which, as long as it was in the ghetto and affected only black children, was something people knew about and they felt sorry about, but not much action was taken. I think sickle cell anemia has that same characteristic. It affects basically only black people. It is something that they are afflicted with. And sometime when we get around to it and take care of all of our other business, we will then go back and help the black people. The thinking in our country, of course, is changing, and rightfully so, and it's changing because people care, people are concerned.
When he was born, he had looked like a wonderful and perfect physical profile for sports, and this was just all I went for. And out of all of the children in my family, he's the only boy that carried the Edmonds name. And so I thought little about God at that time. But since Willie took sick, then I come to realize all of the limitations in life.
Now, you might want to know, how does the black community feel about sickle cell disease? And if you ask me that question, I think I would answer your question with a question. I think I would ask you, suppose 10% of the whole population of the United States was affected by a dread disease. How would you feel about it? What would be your reaction? Well, that's exactly what the reaction is among black people.
Like I said, the child didn't ask for this. When life gave him a kiss, that he would have to suffer such pain and woe. So come on, join the band. Give this little black child a hand and let him grow, let him grow, let him grow.